My husband, Ethan, was reborn, and he returned to the age of 17, standing in the principal's office, defending his so-called white moonlight, the girl who had once bullied me in high school. He held her in his arms, shouting in fury like he was the hero of some tragic romance. "Call the police. Check the surveillance footage. This time, I'll expose your true face in front of everyone." I didn't respond. I had already called the police on my way here. No need to thank me, idiot. Madison had been in the restroom of the academic building, humming a tune as she pressed a lit cigarette against my fingertip. The sound of running water masked her cruelty. "Olivia, I'm warning you," she sneered, her eyes full of contempt. "Don't think that just because Mrs. Warren likes you, you can get close to Logan. You're nothing more than a stray dog the Warren family picked up out of pity." Madison was my sister-in-law, adopted by my mother-in-law, Mrs. Warren, the aunt she referred to. Mrs. Warren had spent her life devoted to charity, sponsoring many underprivileged children who otherwise wouldn't have access to education. I was one of them. At the high school opening ceremony, I was chosen to give a speech because I'd ranked first in the entrance exam. Sitting in the front row as a board member of the school, Mrs. Warren immediately recognized me. She was overjoyed and asked me to tutor her son, my classmate Ethan. I agreed, thinking it was just a simple favor. But Madison, who had secretly been in love with Ethan for years, saw it very differently. She started bullying me, slapping me, tearing up my homework, stuffing razor blades into my desk, pouring lime powder into my water cup, and even leading a group of delinquents to follow me after school. In my past life, I endured it all. I didn't want to make things difficult for Mrs. Warren. But before she died, she told me something that shattered me. She had known everything from the beginning. She had watched from above as I suffered, trapped in that abyss. To her, my pain was a necessary trial, one that would shape me into the perfect daughter-in-law. She said she was pleased with the result. Just as she had envisioned, I had become loyal, capable, and patient, like a well-trained dog. And when I became the top science student in the province, she forcibly arranged my engagement to Ethan. "Are you mute? Speak!" Madison suddenly screamed, slapping me across the face. The pain snapped me back to reality. And in that moment I realized, this wasn't another nightmare. This was a rebirth, a real chance to change everything. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what I now knew. Madison reached to grab my hair, but I seized her wrist in an instant. "Sure no one will come?" I asked calmly. "Of course," she smirked, smug. "I had my people block the stairways. No teacher will pass by." "Good. That's perfect." I twisted her wrist. She screamed. I dragged her into a stall and shoved her face into the toilet. She struggled under my grip, but it didn't shake me. After all, I grew up in a poor mountain village. Cutting firewood and gathering grass was nothing. Strength was something I'd earned. Madison, pampered her whole life, was no match for me. I yanked her up by her long hair and smiled. "How's the toilet water taste?" Her lips quivered. Her mascara ran down her face in dark streaks. She opened her mouth to scream. I shoved her back in. This time I held her down longer. When I finally let go, she was much quieter. She didn't dare cry out anymore, only sobbed in pitiful whimpers. "I'm going to report you. You bullied me, Olivia. Just wait to be expelled." I sneered. "Be my guest." I dragged her out of the stall by her hair. "Go ahead and report me. But remember, so long as I'm in this school, every single day will be like this for you. Don't ever think you'll have it easy." These were the exact words Madison had once said to me. Now I was returning them all. She ran off crying. I knew she was going to tattle. Compared to a penniless scholarship student like me, the daughter of the G family could easily pull strings. But I didn't care. I returned to the stall, then rammed my head against the water pipe on the wall. And just like that, I reunited with the Warren family earlier than before. Not at my engagement party with Ethan, but in the principal's office. Madison was bullied like this by Olivia. I don't care what the reason is. Olivia must be expelled today. Ethan roared at the principal. Madison trembled in his arms, her clothes soaked, clinging to her soft, delicate figure. Mrs. Warren sat on the sofa, dressed in elegant finery, adorned with jewelry. She didn't speak, but her presence alone conveyed her stance. "Oh dear Ethan, we haven't clarified the situation yet. Let's not jump to conclusions," the principal said, usually a sycophant in front of Mrs. Warren. He leaned back in his chair and sipped his tea leisurely. "What did you just say?" Ethan roared. That moment the door creaked open. My homeroom teacher carefully helped me inside. The corner of my mouth was bruised. My right hand was wrapped in a cast, suspended in a sling. The torn collar of my uniform exposed several swollen cigarette burns on my skin. Ethan froze, like a goose strangled mid-squawk, unable to make a sound. Mrs. Warren's face filled with shock. Madison nearly jumped out of Ethan's arms. I turned to Mrs. Warren first, nodding slightly. "Mrs. Warren, I'm sorry we have to meet under these circumstances." "What happened?" she asked, stepping forward and grasping my uninjured hand. Her expression filled with concern. "Tell me the truth, dear." I bit my lip, hesitating, as if debating whether to speak. Mrs. Warren's tone became firmer. "Olivia, be honest with me." I lifted a finger and pointed directly at Madison. Madison shrieked. "She's lying. She hit me. Aunt Warren, look at my clothes, they're soaked." I remained calm, my voice steady. "After school, Madison dragged me into the restroom and had her people block the stairway so no one could pass. Then she tore my clothes, burned me with a cigarette and called me a..." I glanced at my ruined uniform, the cigarette burns still fresh on my skin. "I never laid a hand on her. My clothes got wet because she shoved me into a broken water pipe, causing it to burst." Madison lunged at me, screeching. "You're lying. You broke your own arm just to frame me." I didn't respond. My gaze fell on the pocket of her wet uniform. The fabric had turned nearly transparent, revealing the bright red cigarette pack and lighter inside. Mrs. Warren's expression darkened. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, reached into Madison's pocket, and yanked out the cigarette pack and lighter. The red pack landed on the floor with a crisp sound, a clear and mocking accusation. "Still want to lie?" Mrs. Warren's voice was ice cold. "Are you saying Olivia burned herself just to set you up?" Before Madison could react, Mrs. Warren slapped her across the face. I was stunned. Mrs. Warren had always been a refined woman who valued etiquette and grace. She had never believed in using violence. Only the uncultured resorted to such things. And yet, here she was, striking Madison herself. Madison was frozen. She clutched her face, her eyes brimming with disbelief. "Aunt Warren, you actually hit me, for Olivia?" She turned and buried her face into Ethan's chest, wailing uncontrollably. Ethan lifted his head, looking at Mrs. Warren with visible disappointment. "Mom, I know you like Olivia, but Madison is our family. How could you slap her over Olivia's one-sided accusation?" His voice trembled with emotion as he held Madison protectively, his expression resembling that of a tragic hero in an outdated melodrama. "Call the police," Ethan declared, his eyes burning with hatred as he glanced at me. "Check the surveillance footage. This time, I will expose your true face in front of everyone." My heart pounded violently. That look, after being married to him for so many years, I didn't need any further proof. Just one glance told me the truth. Ethan had also been reborn. Perfect. A slow smile curled on my lips. Justice should be served to the right person after all. The pain Ethan had inflicted on me in my past life. Shouldn't he be the one to repay it? Right on cue, a knock sounded at the door. Without sparing another glance at the so-called star-crossed lovers on the floor, I stepped forward and opened it. "For the police." "I already called them on my way here," I said. "No need to thank me, dumbass." The officers moved quickly, following Ethan's request to check all security footage from the past hour. And sure enough, they found something. There was a camera that, during summer, would usually be blocked by the dense leaves of a French plane tree outside. But in autumn and winter, when the leaves fell, it had a clear view of the restroom window. It didn't capture everything, only the window, but it was enough. It recorded Madison pressing a lit cigarette butt against my skin. Unfortunately for her, the rest of the scene was invisible. Additionally, because Madison and I were of similar height, and the restroom floor was soaked from the broken pipe, all footprints were smudged beyond recognition. The forensic team could only conclude that a fight had taken place, but couldn't determine who had attacked whom. However, the police did find something else: traces of Madison's fingerprints and saliva on the cigarette butts discarded on the floor. Meanwhile, the group of delinquent girls Madison had stationed at the stairway had also been caught on the security footage. Their nerves weren't strong enough to withstand police questioning. After just a few probing remarks, they spilled everything, and not just about today. They exposed Madison's long history of bullying. I wasn't the first girl she had targeted. Any girl who got too close to Ethan had suffered under her hands. One girl, a quiet, introverted classmate of Ethan's, had only been teased by him once, just a passing joke about her chest size. Madison had taken that as a personal offense. She arranged for a group of thugs to assault the girl. The poor girl had attempted suicide multiple times. She had dropped out of school and was now receiving psychiatric treatment at home. Madison couldn't accept the way things were unfolding. Ethan shoved everyone aside and rushed to the screen, frantically replaying the surveillance footage over and over. How could this be? How could it be so coincidental? His voice trembled with disbelief. You all must have tampered with it. The officer he had pushed aside frowned. Young man, watch your words. From the moment we arrived, we haven't even spoken to the person who made the report. Explain to me. How exactly did we tamper with anything? Madison had no answer. She buried her head in her arms and broke down into uncontrollable sobs. I stood at the back of the crowd, cold and indifferent, watching the whole spectacle unfold as if it had nothing to do with me. The secret of the camera was something I had discovered in my past life. When I donated money to renovate the school as an outstanding alumnus, I hadn't wanted to contribute to a place filled with painful memories. But Madison knew exactly how to make me suffer, so she convinced Mrs. Warren and Ethan, along with the entire Warren family, to pressure me into doing it. And so you see, everything in life follows a certain cycle. Justice may be delayed, but it is never denied. Ethan was completely dazed. Within an hour, the girl he had worshipped all his life, his so-called white moonlight, had been utterly destroyed right before his eyes. His entire world was crumbling. He crouched on the floor, gripping his hair in despair. How could this be? This isn't how it was supposed to be. Suddenly, he lifted his head. His bloodshot eyes locked onto me. It was you, wasn't you? You did this, he shouted in rage. I raised a brow and looked at him coldly. What exactly did I do? Did I grab Madison's hand and force her to burn me with a cigarette? Ethan's words caught in his throat. In my past life I had been his wife, the woman Mrs. Warren had chosen as the heir to the family business, the CEO of Warren Group. Back then I had power and influence, the textbook villainous fiancé in every cliché romance novel. So of course, Ethan had always assumed everything was my fault. If Madison suffered, it was because of me. I was a cruel and calculating woman who would stop at nothing to get my way. If Madison hurt others, it was still because of me. I was jealous of her purity and beauty, so I must have set her up. But now I had nothing. And Madison was still the rotten, malicious person she had always been. No one needed to frame her. She had done it all to herself. Ethan stared as the police twisted Madison's arms behind her back and dragged her away. Suddenly, he let out a low, manic laugh. Tears slipped through his fingers as his laughter grew louder and louder, until it turned into wretched sobs. Mrs. Warren rushed forward in alarm. Ethan! But he shoved her hands away and ran out of the room. I watched as Madison screamed and thrashed while being shoved into the police car. Assault, false accusations, defamation, orchestrating an attack. Since she was already 17, the severity of the case meant she was looking at real jail time. No one could save her now. My injury was classified as a second-degree fracture, meaning I had sustained moderate bodily harm. If I chose to press charges, the Warren family would have to pay at least $200,000 in compensation. Mrs. Warren offered me a deal. "I'll give you $1 million," she said, "as long as you sign a letter of leniency and agree to drop the charges against Madison." I sneered. $1 million. I'd pay $1 million of my own money if it meant making sure Madison rotted behind bars. Watching a guilty person get what they deserved was far more satisfying than any amount of money. Mrs. Warren's face darkened. "Olivia," she said coldly, "how did you become like this? I'm very disappointed in you." I let out a dry laugh. As if I gave a damn. I knew exactly the kind of person Mrs. Warren was. She wouldn't just let this go. She would make sure I paid for rejecting her offer. And sure enough, the very next day my homeroom teacher called. "Olivia, I need to inform you that your financial aid has been revoked," she said. "Also, the school is now requiring tuition fees for senior year to be paid in advance. Please bring the money when you return to class." Mrs. Warren really was a shrewd businesswoman. She knew exactly where to strike. My tuition at Springgrass High was $5,000 per year. My scholarships and the money I made from part-time jobs barely covered it, and my first-place scholarship for the year hadn't even been issued yet. Where was a high school junior supposed to find $5,000? On top of that, with my financial aid gone, I was about to face a situation where I couldn't even afford to eat. Mrs. Warren's intentions were crystal clear. She wanted to force me to bow my head. But she had severely underestimated me. $5,000 might be enough to push an impoverished student with no survival skills to the brink of despair. But it was nowhere near enough to break someone like me. Someone armed with a full-fledged system of theoretical knowledge, over 20 years of industry experience, professional expertise, and highly refined technical skills. In my past life, I had single-handedly transformed Warren Tech from a declining corporation into one of the leading technology firms in the industry. And now I was staring at a golden opportunity. The IT sector was still an untapped blue ocean. I held in my hands a roadmap of the industry's next 20 years. If I didn't take action now, it would be nothing short of a crime against fate itself. As the morning sun rose high, I took a deep breath, feeling an exhilarating sense of freedom. The vast world stretched before me. An open sea for a fish to leap, a boundless sky for a bird to soar. I applied for a month of medical leave. With no computer of my own, I rented a private booth at a dingy internet cafe. In 7 days I wrote 3 algorithmic models. On the 8th day, I pocketed my USB drive and made my way to a rundown office building in Startup Village. The man I was looking for had an unmistakable presence. Unkempt, scruffy beard, hair sticking up like a bird's nest. He looked even more disheveled than his office. But I knew exactly who he was. One day, his name would be known by every Chinese internet user. The search engine he would create would be built entirely on Chinese linguistic logic, offering the most seamless user experience for native speakers. Yet, in my past life, due to a bottleneck in key technological development, his product had launched a full year behind its international competitors. That delay cost him the first-mover advantage. His market share never recovered, and he remained forever plagued by copycats stealing his work. "I know you're still missing 5 algorithmic models," I said, sitting across from a stunned Sean Chin, doing my best to project the aura of a high-level executive. I placed my USB drive on the table. "Here are 3 of them. If you agree to my terms, I'll write the remaining 2 for you." Sean, realizing I wasn't joking, turned his head and shouted toward the door. A moment later, a chubby man, round as a Buddha, rolled into the room. "Sean, load this up." Sean tossed the USB drive over. "Are you serious?" The chubby man gave me a doubtful look. "This girl isn't even old enough to vote yet. Are we really just trying anything at this point?" But when both Sean and I glared at him, he shut up and hurried out with the drive. 10 minutes later he stormed back in. His face flushed red with excitement. Sean, it works, freaking works. Local deployment time is down to 8 minutes now. Ha ha ha, it works. The chubby man yanked Sean out of his chair, dragging him around the office in a ridiculous dance of joy. Sean, still in shock, slowly turned his head to stare at me. What about cross-platform compatibility? No issues. It runs smoothly on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. Sean let out a deep breath. At this rate, we'll be able to hold our launch event in 3 months. 3 months. I bit into the cream bread Sean had given me, my first meal of the day since I was saving money, and suddenly remembered that the competing search engine that had overshadowed Sean's entire career was also scheduled to launch in 3 months. That wasn't good. It'd be best if we could launch within 2 months. I said announce it early, I added. The details can be patched later. Right now, securing our market position is the most important thing. I swallowed my bite of bread and added, if you don't have enough people, I can help. The chubby man beamed. Sister, with you on board, I can rest easy. Whatever you say, we'll do it. Sean, however, remained cautious, pushing the chubby man aside. He fixed me with a serious look. You haven't told us your terms yet. I raised my hand, spreading my fingers. 500,000. The chubby man guessed tentatively. I shook my head. 5 million. 50 million. I kept shaking my head. You can't be asking for 500 million, right? He turned desperately to Sean for help. Sean hesitated, then nodded slowly. If it's 500 million, it's not entirely impossible once we launch. But right now that's impossible. These guys were hilarious. 5,000, I said flatly, maintaining my commanding presence as I glanced down at them. In cash. Make it quick. I paid my tuition. Sean transferred $50,000 to me after learning about my situation. He took me to the bank to open a new savings account, deposited the money, then withdrew $1,550 in cash to hand to me. The area where I rented my place was a chaotic mix of people from all walks of life. There was no way Sean was going to let a minor who was both injured and carrying a large sum of money take a taxi home alone. The police station fell silent after the officer's words. Ethan stood there, trembling, his face pale, his knuckles white. He had no answer. None of them did. Madison was led away in handcuffs, her sobs fading down the hallway. The girl who had once ruled the school with fear, who had twisted hearts and shattered lives with a smile, was now just a criminal facing real consequences. The system had finally caught up with her, and this time no amount of money or influence could erase the evidence. But the real storm hadn't even begun. A week later, headlines exploded across every news outlet. Teenage bully from elite high school arrested. Victims speak out. A video went viral. Recordings from hidden phones, testimonies from girls Madison had broken over the years. One girl, the quiet classmate Ethan had once jokingly teased, appeared on a talk show, her voice soft but steady. I wanted to die, she said, because I thought I deserved it. But now I want justice. The Warren family's reputation crumbled overnight. Ethan vanished. No one saw him for days. When he finally resurfaced, he wasn't the golden boy anymore. He looked hollow, like a man who had woken from a dream only to find reality far crueler than he ever imagined. He tried to reach out to me once, cornered me after class, eyes desperate. Olivia, he said, voice breaking. I remember everything. The past life, our marriage. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. But please, tell me, how did you know? How did you plan all of this? I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since we'd been reborn. And I smiled, not with cruelty, not with triumph, but with quiet finality. I didn't plan it, I said. I just stopped playing the role you both wanted me to. And then I walked away. Because the truth was, I hadn't come back to punish Ethan. I hadn't come back for revenge, not really. Came back to live. And live I did. 2 months later, our search engine launched. 2 weeks ahead of the competing giant. We called it Veritas, Latin for truth. Within days, it became the fastest-growing platform in the country. Our algorithm was flawless, our interface intuitive, and our story, legend. A teenage girl, injured and broke, walks into a failing startup with a USB drive and changes the tech world forever. Sean and the chubby Buddha, whose name was actually Leo, became my brothers in every way that mattered. We worked day and night building something real, something ours. And when the first billion-dollar valuation landed on our table, I didn't flinch. I just sipped my tea and said, "Good. But we're just getting started." As for Mrs. Warren, she tried to sue me for slander. Then she tried to bribe the school board to expel me. But the moment she filed the lawsuit, I released the audio recording, *the recording, from my past life. A private conversation between her and Madison, where she calmly said, "Let Olivia suffer. Pain shapes character. And a good daughter-in-law must know her place." The public outrage was nuclear. Her charity empire collapsed. Donors pulled out. Protests erupted outside Warren Group headquarters. And when the board voted her out, I didn't cheer. I just sent her a single text. "You trained me well." Ethan eventually left the country. I heard he enrolled in a university overseas, trying to start over. Part of me pitied him. The other part remembered the years I spent crying in silence, the scars on my arms, the way he turned his back every time I begged for help. He wasn't evil, just weak. And weakness, when given power, becomes cruelty. But me. I wasn't weak anymore. 5 years passed. I stood on a stage, under bright lights, holding an award for Innovator of the Decade. Cameras flashed. The audience rose in applause. And as I looked out into the crowd, I saw Sean and Leo cheering like maniacs. Sean waving a sign that said "Told you she'd change the world." I laughed, then turned to the microphone. "They said I was a stray dog," I said, voice calm but strong. "That I didn't belong. That I should be grateful for scraps. But I learned something. No one gets to define your worth. Not your family. Not your lover. Not the world." Paused, smiling. I was reborn, but I didn't come back to fix the past. I came back to build a future. And as the applause thundered through the hall, I knew one thing for certain. This time I won.